One of the things I've learned, and I learned this years ago when I first got involved in history, is that a lot of people don't want to tell the stories. They want when it comes to African American history and stories, they want us to tell about a kumbaya moment. And that's grand. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with telling about the achievements of the black teachers. There's nothing wrong with telling the achievements of black preachers, educators, and business people. There's nothing in the world wrong with that. Problem is the violence that was put against blacks from the end of the Civil War on up to the 1960s actually defined blacks in Kentucky. So it kind of changed how blacks look at not only our state but at the nation, because you were saying one thing as a state and as a nation as far as how you were doing and who you were, but you were doing another thing to intimidate, scare, and terrorize a group of these citizens. In 2008, it was the 100-year anniversary of the lynching of four young men here. I thought it was important that people knew what happened here in 1908, because ever since I was a kid, you kind of heard rumors of what happened. They would say it's about rape or somebody broke in somebody's house. I thought it was so important that people knew exactly what went on. So that was the purpose of putting the exhibit up. In 1908, a young guy named Rufus Browder was working for the overseer of Dr. Jesse Russell's farm named James Cunningham. Rufus told him he wanted to get off and go to Allensville, which was close to the farm, and get some medicine for his wife. Rufus asked him, doesn't the man have 30 days to leave? And Cunningham said, no. And Rufus said, well, hell, I don't like your darn way of doing things. Cunningham was alleged to hit him with a hitch ring, and then both of them drew their pistols. Cunningham shot Rufus, and Rufus shot Cunningham. Rufus ran down the road and hid in a sinkhole on his father's farm. Cunningham died in the road. When the neighbors heard of what happened, people started gathering and looking for Rufus. And they were gathering in groups with guns and everything. Sheriff Tom Ray, who was the sheriff of Logan County at that time, got the word that there had been a killing. So he took a train down there to try to hunt for Rufus. And he ran into Rufus's father, Fletcher Browder Sr. Fletcher kept noticing all these armed mobs, so he got scared, and eventually he sent word to Tom Ray that if he would guarantee Rufus's life, that he would turn Rufus in. Fletcher took Tom Ray to where Rufus was hiding in a sinkhole on a farm between Fletcher's farm and another farm. When they got Rufus out of the sinkhole, they asked him, has anybody been here? He said, John Boyette, which was his brother-in-law, said he was telling me what was going on around the house. Tom Ray arrested him. They got word that a mob was coming, that a mob would be descending on the jail to take Rufus. So Tom Ray and Jailer Butch, who's the jailer, came up with a scheme where they would hide him, and then eventually they would take him to Bowling Green. So they took him to a local black cemetery and hid him. And the next morning they put Rufus on the train and sent him to Bowling Green for safekeeping. About 2 weeks later, a guy named John Jones and his brother Virgil Jones were meeting at a lodge meeting. The lodge was the True Reformer Lodge, and they passed a resolution saying that Rufus had killed Cunningham in self-defense. The authorities descended on the mob meeting and arrested John Jones and Virgil Jones. They arrested them for hindering prosecution and threatening a witness, I believe. They also arrested John Boyer, who had been telling Rufus what was going on, and they arrested him for hindering prosecution. So all three of them was in jail. There was an African-American guy named Joe Riley. They arrested him for carrying a concealed deadly weapon. So he was in the jail. On the morning of August the 1st, 1908, the mob descended on the jail, and they demanded the prisons. They told the jailer if he didn't give them to them, then they would kill him. The mob told the jailer, said, we come to get Rufus Browder. He said, Rufus ain't in here. So, well, we come to get those other in that they arrested. So they went into jail and they took one out, tied his hands, and marched him out. They took another one out, tied his hands, and marched him out. They took another one out, tied his hands, and marched him out. And then they took the fourth one out, tied his hands, and marched him out. They marched him past the mayor's house, Armstrong Street, where the lynching tree was, where a number of lynchings had already occurred. And they lynched him. They left a note on him. And the note said, let this be a warning to you niggas. Let white people alone or you go the same damn way. Your lodges and halls better shut up and quit. When the news got out that there was a lynching, people came from all around to look at the bodies. One guy came, was a guy named Bud Morton, and he took pictures of it. And another guy took pictures of it. And eventually they became postcards. Eventually, Rufus would go to 3 trials. The first trial would be a hung jury. If my memory serves me correct, it was 10 for the death penalty, 1 for life in prison, and 1 for 21 years. The one for 21 years, they said they ran him out of town. The family heard that Rufus was going to get out of prison, and they were told to meet him at the train station. When they got to the train station, they waited on the Jim Crow car because in those days, blacks couldn't ride in all the cars. And they waited for people to get off the Jim Crow car, and he never got off. So they went to the conductor of the train and said, we're looking for Rufus Browder. He's supposed to be on this train coming from Lyon County, and he's not on here. He said, by God, he's here. And he took him to a boxcar and opened him up, and he was in the boxcar in a pine box. His death certificate said he died of tuberculosis. Who knows? In Logan County, the racial situation kind of changed because I don't think that the local people liked the publicity. It was national publicity. It was in the New York Times. It was in the Chicago Tribune. The story went all over the United States. One of it was the postcard. The postcard was made, declared unmailable, and if my memory serves me correct, laws were passed where you could not mail out certain things in the mail after that. You know, and like I said, it was used to scare, intimidate. That's what you do. You scare and you intimidate and you use violence. When the lynching occurred, they sent them to black people. If you get out of line, this is what happened to you. They used to intimidate. That's all it's about, is to intimidate. Another aspect of it, I think, was that all whites in Logan County didn't agree with that. They didn't agree with the lynching. They didn't agree with all of it. I think when you look at what's going on now and you look at what went on then, that you had a lot of whites who come out with this Black Lives Matter and with these protests. You had a lot of whites in America who decided that they've had enough. On one hand, to me, it was a good thing that all those white people came out to support who seen what happened to George Floyd as being wrong. But on another thing, it's saying that the only way we don't get murdered is that white people step in the way. That's kind of what happened. Like I said, we've got to change, and change is not changing your mind. Change is changing your heart. We've got to change our hearts. We've got to change who we are, who we have become. You know, to me, we have to start telling these stories. We have to start telling them to let whites understand what went on, but also to help blacks understand what happened. I think the Commonwealth has got to start dealing with the truth of what it done to the citizens of African American descent. They've got to start talking about it. They've got to start telling about it. They've got to let people see what happened. And if we do that, I think we'll be a better Commonwealth.